Hi everyone. First, I hope the noise or sound is okay. I don't have any air conditioning. It is really crazy hot outside, and so I've got the window open. I've got my fan going, and I tried going without it for the sake of the video, but I couldn't last like 10 seconds. So, my apologies. I'm keeping it on. I had to put clothes on, kind of. I'm wearing a dress. I know. I put clothes on for the video, but I'm leaving my fan on and my window open. I'll just try really hard to speak up and hope that it's okay. Um, I really wanted to do some question and answer videos. I just think it sounds like a fun idea. People can send me their questions and I'll do my best to answer them. Obviously, I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers. So I actually welcome people challenging my answers or what I have to say. I think that's how we can all learn. I do make mistakes. Feel free to challenge me or correct me on something. Let's get a conversation going. I just ask that it's not blatantly insulting um, or incredibly offensive. If we can stay open minded, ask each other questions, have some conversations going, I think that's ideal. So let's get started. I've got two questions here. I know you're like, oh, two? That's not very many. They're two pretty big questions. So they have some fairly long answers. So I think these two, I think they're really good to start as well. So we're going for our two questions. First question. I'm reading this word for word. Help! I've fallen in love with a vanilla, even though it goes against my rules. There's the quotations in the quote. Any tips on introducing the idea and world of kink and BDSM to a partner who has little to no experience with it without coming off as overbearing or making them feel forced into it? Great question. Thank you for such a good question. This isn't a simple answer though, so I've got a few things that I would like to say regarding this little piece here. It's kind of more than a question. Um, I want to make a quick kind of side note about the word rules. It was in quotation, so I'm going to talk about it. Um, Rules versus boundaries versus agreements. Um, Rules. I have a hard time with rules, but I like my freedom. So just the word rule can be a difficult word because rule feels like you are the one taking control, like a veto kind of thing. If you veto a partner, you're not really offering much of a conversation. You're kind of like, this is a rule. And it's kind of like, this is a rule for you. A boundary is more about yourself, I think, more about personal autonomy. And boundaries are really great to have. Rules, I struggle a little bit with the word rules, but I mean, if that helps, maybe that helps some people, but I get a little bit uncomfortable when I hear the word rules. I like agreements. The word agreements is something you can talk about, something you can both agree on. It's not necessarily a rule. Words make a big difference. Um, just keep in mind that with rules, boundaries, agreements, um, to always be talking about them and checking in because they change. Um, because relationships and people are constantly changing, and it's good to keep on board and make sure you're communicating those whenever there are changes and making sure everyone's okay with what's happening. So, um, yeah, rules. That's a tough one because you're not allowed to fall in love with a vanilla, and that's not uncommon. um, there are situations where people are partnered with somebody and um, they have a rule like they can have sex with or play with other people, but you're not allowed to fall in love. And I that's interesting to me. I don't think that's personally, I don't think that's very realistic because you can't help who you fall in love with. That's a lot of why I am poly, and why I'm kind of a relationship anarchist on the side of things. Because I think sorry, I'm jiggling the computer. I'm getting very excited. You can't help who you fall in love with, um, but you can choose where you go with that relationship. Um, so We're going to get into that. I just had to throw that out there. If you are helping somebody learn about kink, someone that's like totally new and just discovering things for the first time, it says here, you're worried about pushing things or feeling too forceful. I personally think in that kind of scenario, it shouldn't be as much about you. It should be about your partner, the one that is learning and discovering things. This is kind of their journey, and you're guiding them on that. So yeah, I like the idea of making a little bit more about them and not you forcing like, oh, you should be kinky, you should try these things. If your partner's interested, I think it's great to kind of help guide and um, nurture that in a sense and help them through their journey. There are things you can do. You can use your awesome skills to show them how much they can enjoy certain activities. Skills play a really big part. So if someone's like, I'm interested in spanking, and you're like, I'm actually pretty good at spanking. That can be a great way to get them started on something, because if they can appreciate it from the beginning, they'll be more likely to explore that more. You can help introduce them to other people in the scene, going to events, going to munches, or just social things. And just even to take them to an event where they can see things. Now, make sure that's something they're comfortable with. And I actually kind of, as a side little tip here, for your first event, I don't recommend going to a conference for your first event. I know there are people that have done it and we're totally fine. But conferences are busy, they are packed, and oftentimes at conferences, you will more likely see scenes that are kind of above and beyond and really theatrical or that. And that's what I love about conferences. People go really all out on scenes at conferences. But for a first time, that can be really overwhelming, and you don't necessarily want to scare them away. I mean, we really don't want to scare them away. I shouldn't say necessarily. So I say, like, take them to an event, start them light. There are munches, there are events that maybe don't have dress codes. If that's something that is really difficult for somebody, if they're worried about what to wear, take them to an event that doesn't have a dress code. That kind of thing. Classes are great. Classes are amazing. There's a lot of beginner and advanced classes just to kind of get the conversation going. Let people kind of sit and chew on things. So another kind of point I want to make about this question here is that in that journey that you're kind of helping your partner go on as they're discovering things, there are several things that can happen. One, maybe it turns out that person just isn't kinky. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you and your partner need to both kind of decide for yourselves and for the relationship where that goes if that happens. Some people make it work. Some people are totally fine with, either being monogamous and just not having a kinky relationship. Other people might say, okay, I'm not going to be kinky with you, but I have other partners I can be kinky with. Is that okay? And in some cases, you might have to decide that having a relationship with somebody that is vanilla isn't going to work. Love is great. It's a beautiful, amazing, and awful, horrible, terrible thing. But being in love with somebody, honestly, sometimes just isn't enough. I have really connected with some amazing human beings on a lot of levels that weren't kinky, and I thought I could do it. I was like, you know what, it's okay, we're so compatible in so many other areas, it'll be okay. And I couldn't do it. It was difficult for me. And I felt guilty for that. I was like, oh, this just isn't satisfying. It's like licking the food and not being able to eat it, which was kind of a lesson in that my kink is really a part of my sexuality. I am a sadomasochist. I need that in order to be sexually satisfied and emotionally satisfied and all those other lovely things. So you need to decide if it turns out that that person actually isn't kinky at all, where you want to go from there, because that's a possibility. But I mean, even if that is, you can say, hey, that's something we talked about. That's something we tried. Good for us. Good for you for trying. Um, what, another possibility, what if it turns out they are into kink, but not in ways that are compatible with you? Like you meet somebody that's like, oh, I'm interested in trying these things. And you're like, cool, let's go try some rope. And they try and they're like, that's cool, but wow, knife fucking. I want to do that. And you're like, wow, so not my area of kink. That can happen. And again, you still have to decide with yourself and within the relationship whether that's something that you want to continue um, and can work on in that sense, and work with, I should say. Um, and if not, still value that. I mean, I think it's a cool feeling to help somebody discover things about themselves. And even if they end up, going into other kind of areas of the scene or the community or doing other activities that maybe aren't as much your thing, you're still kind of like, fly, birdie, fly. It's this lovely moment of like, wow, that was really cool. A year ago, you never tried anything and now you're off doing all this really amazing stuff. Um, so, I mean, enjoy that. That's a fun journey to be a part of and to watch someone go through. I love watching people learn things about themselves and discover something. Like, I've never tried that. I'm like, really? Do you want to try it? And we do it, and sometimes they're like, eh. And others, it's like big eyes, like, oh, hearing music and all this wonderful stuff. It's really cool. Um, and, of course, there's the possibility that you're trying kink with this new partner and things go really well and you both end up being really compatible and the birds are singing and everyone's happy and that's fantastic. Not always the case though, so please keep that in mind. um, but I mean that's ideal in a lot of ways if that's what you're going for. But yeah, if you, yeah, part of the question, yeah, um, you don't want to come off as overbearing or making them feel like they're forced into it. That's just it. I think if you are being overbearing or kind of forcing them, I think you may be making that. Oh, sorry, there's a big truck going by. I hope you can still hear me. You might be making it a little bit about yourself if that's the case. And if someone is new and trying to discover things and is curious, that's their kink journey. And you can have a wonderful time together helping them through that journey. But try to keep the focus a little bit more on them as they're learning and discovering things. Have patience. Go slow, like start low and work your way through different areas of kink, negotiate really thoroughly, that kind of thing. That's mostly my advice for that question. Check in a lot through this journey. Um, because it's quite a journey. There's a lot to explore. There's a lot to talk about. So yeah, make sure you're checking in and you're communicating through this journey because there is a chance that it might not end up working out. Long term longevity isn't, I think, a successful relationship. You can have a short term successful amazing beautiful relationship and be a part of that, but that's a whole nother talk. So kind of help guide, but also let them fly. um, I hope that answers that. Number 2, our second question, second part. Hang on, I'm gonna have a quick. It is so warm. Ugh. As soon as this is done, I'm like taking off my clothes and lying in front of a fan to try to cool off. Question number 2. How do you gain confidence as a dominant or top? I know practice and classes are helpful, but more the mental state of feeling like you know what you're doing and that you're not a newbie anymore. I have a lot to say on that one. That's another big question. So thank you. Great question. Um, the first thing I kind of want to do, I've done this in a few of my classes, and I can't help myself here. I really want to quickly differentiate a little bit between confidence and ego. Different things, but constantly mistaken as the same thing. Confidence is about self-assurance, and ego is about self-importance. Confidence, sexy, very sexy. very attractive when someone has a lot of confidence. I mean, I also love awkward, but for its sake, confidence is very sexy. Um, and it's good to have a confident top. You'll trust them more and you'll be able to relax a little bit more. So confidence is a really great thing to have. Ego is something I just want to differentiate that ego is different. It's more about self-importance. I personally don't find ego very attractive as a quality. But I do think it's a bit of a red flag for me. Ego is, I think it can be dangerous. I think it's kind of a slippery slope with ego. So I personally try and like check my ego a little bit sometimes, because I don't want to get a giant ego. I don't want to get ahead of myself because it can be dangerous for various reasons. One being, I mean, how many times have you heard the phrase, "Oh, I've done this a million times"? That phrase scares the shit out of me. That's a scary phrase because that's like, oh, I've done this, it'll be fine. It's like, oh, things happen. Things do happen. And another one is reputation. I think that is fairly common when it comes to ego in the kink community. You have somebody that has a reputation, whatever that is, of being this amazing top or a really scary top or really good with this or really good at another thing. And when that reputation kind of feeds the ego a little bit, sometimes people feel the need to uphold that reputation, and especially in a public setting might push things further than they normally would, um, because they want to be spectacular and give a good show. We all love a good show, but I had to throw that in there, the difference between confidence, ego. Confidence, ego. Yeah, I'm gonna stop messing around now. Confidence doesn't always come easy, and please don't make the mistake of thinking once you have confidence, like you're good, because you can lose that confidence. And you'll get it back. You will get it back, but it happens sometimes because, as I mentioned just a moment ago, things go wrong. It happens. What's important is how you handle the situation. That is a whole nother topic. Like, we can discuss that another day on handling scenes gone wrong. But it is something that happens, and it can have a major effect on a top's confidence. Um, did I just say tops were vulnerable? Yes, I did, because we are. Because things do go wrong, and I'll share a little bit of personal stuff. I mean, sometimes I call my confidence my top hat, because there are times when I have felt like I've lost my top hat. Um, one being a scene that went wrong. I felt like the biggest piece of garbage, and I tried to kind of deal with it on my own without talking to anyone. And um, I I'll get into it in a moment, actually, because I'm gonna talk about some other stuff. But I did get my confidence back. I found my top hat again, and well, I'll go into that in a moment. So keep in mind, you can lose that confidence, but you can totally get it back. It's something you have to constantly work on. Um, Part of the statement here, the question, I know practice and classes are helpful. I'm going to go ahead and say that practice and classes are essential. Not just helpful, essential. Practice, practice. Classes, maybe not for everyone, but I love classes. I love going to them. I love teaching them. Either way, I learn tons and just get a lot of ideas, which actually helps my confidence in a lot of ways. Sometimes I'll go to a class and I'll see something and I'm like, oh, I totally want to do that. But usually for myself, I'll see someone doing something in a class and it'll be like, oh, I have an idea that's kind of related to that. Um, so there's not just learning, but even talking with other tops, such as like the best ideas I've had have come from just talking with other tops. Um, there are people that'll joke like you get tops together and like nothing good comes of that because we'll bounce ideas off each other and it gets better and better and we're like, wow, this is, yeah. So having other tops and bottoms to talk to and to meet, which comes from classes, it comes from munches and events, um, and just having other resources to talk to, which brings me back to, thank you, my little story about losing my top hat. I had a scene that went really wrong. I felt like a piece of crap over it, and I had a hard time getting that back. I found myself constantly hesitating, like overly hesitating in scenes, doing the like, "Are you okay? You're good? Okay. Is that okay? We're good. You're all right. You're still with me. You're still on board. Okay. How's that?" Not usually what people are looking for. It's not very sexy to have that much doubt in a scene. Um, and one day I confided in another top that I trusted. I told her what happened, and she just came to me and gave me this like huge, enveloping, wonderful, warm hug and just said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's happened to me too." And I'm like, "This has happened to you too? Really?" And she was like, "Absolutely. It does happen. And you'll be okay. You'll come back from this." And I thought, are there other tops that have had like scenes gone wrong and or that have lost their top hat due to whatever circumstances and had a hard time getting that back? Absolutely. The more tops I talked to, the more people that I felt comfortable confiding in that were tops, and even in classes mentioning, by the way, things go wrong and we lose our confidence. And every top has either said to me directly, "Yes, absolutely, that has happened before," or when I'm teaching and I bring it up and you see like everybody nodding, like, "Oh, yes, 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 yes." So that's like another thing where I'm going to just really push resources. Um, I mean, there are a lot of support groups for bottoms because they obviously do need it. Things go wrong for bottoms too. Um, but I don't think tops get together enough. I don't think tops talk enough about their vulnerabilities, or lack of confidence or any issues they might be having or something that's possibly gone wrong in a scene or in a relationship, because tops are afraid of being perceived as bad tops and don't want to admit that they're human. And I get that. But we are human. It happens. And what's important is how you deal with it and how you come back from it. Um, that was a bit of a side rant, but it's still related to confidence because I think talking to more tops about personal things or about my own identity as a top and all the crazy things that go along with it has given me more confidence. Those are the many tops that have said, "Yeah, absolutely, that's happened to me too." Help bring back my confidence. It made me feel like, "Oh, okay, this is normal. These people have come back from it. I can too." Um, so yeah, and practice. Practice is essential. That will come with time and experience. I'm sorry that's not a great quick fix, but it really just comes with experience and time. You do get better. If you do want some more quick tips, I do have some. Um, oh, sorry, not yet. Ha, you don't get your quick tips yet. I forgot one thing. Um, there are some things you can work on as well. I think working on being intuitive and being observant. Oh, if you can master that, like you'll have your confidence. If you can be really intuitive and if you can be really observant, that's a great top qualities right there. Um, because that intuition, being able to connect with somebody, keep those lines of communication open, whether they're really obvious or really subtle, ideally both, um, to be aware of things, be aware of skin color changes, if someone's getting really flushed or if they're going a little bit pale, are they sweating, what's their breathing like, what kind of noises are they making, where are they looking, which ways are their body moving, what's their posture like. Oh my goodness, everything. If you can observe that and really kind of have that intuition and connection with somebody, you'll be able to understand more what they're going through, what it feels like for them, whether they can keep going, whether they need to stop, all of those things. And on top of that, please, please trust your instinct. Please trust your instinct. Um, I think we have instinct for a really good reason. And I think if you're, say, in a situation where you're not sure whether you should keep going or not, play it safe, wind down the scene, and likely, especially, oh, and it's tough if you've got a bottom that is like begging you to keep going. If you're like, I'm gonna be a good top, I have to be a good top, I'm gonna stop. We'll stop right here, and you know what? Later, we can talk about doing those things that you wanted to do, or going harder, or going whatever. And I can almost guarantee another scene out of that. Um, Definitely a lot more likely if you stop a scene a little bit too early than too late. So please trust those instincts. Don't ignore them. Um, the last part of the question here that I had to point out. I've got my notes. I know practice in classes are helpful, but more the mental state of feeling like you know what you're doing. My response to that, please know what you're doing. Please know what you're doing. Please, please, please know what you're doing. Please don't take that as inexperience is bad. Mm-mm. Inexperience is totally okay. It is okay to be inexperienced. There are lots of tops and bottoms that love playing with inexperienced tops and bottoms. Um, you're not less likely to get someone to play with you if you're inexperienced. You just maybe have to look in the right places. What I mean when I say know what you're doing means, like, say if you're really into rope, don't be like, hey, I learned how to do a fudo. I'm gonna do a suspension now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't go and learn one small thing and then just jump way ahead to stuff that is way beyond your experience and skill. Because that's how things go wrong. That's how people get hurt. And that is a surefire way to give you a bad reputation. Please do not lie about your experience. Let's make it okay and talk more about how it is okay to be inexperienced. I think there's a lot of pressure for people to be, masters and like at a certain skill, which is cool. That's awesome. But not everybody has to be totally experienced and at this really high level, especially when you haven't been in a scene for too long. So what I want to say is learn a skill and get really confident with that skill. Um, and then, move up a little bit, and then move up a little bit, and move up a little bit. Get comfortable where you are before you move on to the next level. That's a really good way of getting really, really good at something. You can be really good at one thing and maybe not so good at everything else, and that's cool. That works. Just please know what you're doing before you do something. Um, that means classes, that means practice, that can mean other resources, people in the scene that you know, people maybe you want to co-top or co-bottom with, even just go to events and to watch. Um, so yes, please know what you're doing before you do it. Um, so now I'm going to get to the quick tips. Okay, I got ahead of myself. Now I'm going to go to the quick tips because everything I mentioned takes time and practice. I mean, that's the bottom line when it comes to like really having that confidence and being able to do that. But I've got some quick tips that will help. I put down deep breathing and focus. That's kind of just something I do before a scene. Whether I'm topping or bottoming, I do kind of like to get myself in my own headspace. If I'm topping, I will absolutely do it. I'll have like some deep breathing and I'll kind of start focusing. Maybe I'll start thinking about, oh, sorry, big truck just went by. I really hope everyone can hear me okay. I live on a busy street. Where was I? Deep breathing and getting yourself in that kind of zone. I'll start thinking about maybe the things I want to do in that scene, how I want to present myself. I'll probably change my posture a little bit, try to stand up taller. Um, and oh, here comes my cat. And yeah, get myself in that space. And I've actually seen that, or at least something similar with people that play sports. I dated a guy a long time ago in like high school who played hockey, and whenever we were on our way to one of his hockey games, he was really quiet. Like he didn't want anyone to talk to him. He was so like focused and getting in that zone, and I do that before a scene, particularly if I'm topping. I try to kind of focus and get in that headspace a little bit. Other tips, dress the part. That can be huge. That can be so helpful. Something as simple as like a wicked pair of boots makes me feel really confident and dykey and awesome. That can be leather, it can be latex, it can be nudity, it can be all kinds of things. But sometimes dressing up a little bit, even if it's subtle or if it's all out, can get you in the right headspace for a scene. Totally. Um, I want to say negotiate well ahead of time. I feel like that's kind of a given, but I want to say it anyways. Um, because if you negotiate really well, say a question like, "Is crying okay? Does crying mean stop?" Um, and if you already know the answer to that question, and you're mid scene and somebody starts crying, you'll know. Okay, I mean it's good to check in, but you're not going to end up being that top that's like, "Is this okay? Is that okay? Are we cool? Is that too much?" And asking those constant questions that's going to break the illusion of the scene and pull somebody from that headspace, and the energy is going to be kind of wonky. So if you've negotiated really well ahead of time, you'll know and be like, "Oh, okay, this person's crying. We talked about crying and they're totally cool with it. Now I can continue or do what you need to do." So I need to make sure you're negotiating really thoroughly. And that can help your confidence because you'll be more like, "Okay, I know a little more of what's happening." Don't throw away those lines of communication. Keep those open, but it'll help. I had somebody that told me they like to use a mirror and like practice in the mirror. I kind of want to try that now because I never have. I feel like I would be embarrassed, but I really want to try it now because they said it really helped them get into that like confident, toppy, dominant headspace. Because they were like, if I can do it in front of a mirror, I can do it in front of anybody. So I thought that was cool. Maybe give it a try. Let me know if it works for you. And last, in terms of like quick tips for helping with confidence in scenes, I want to say ethically, fake it till you make it, or play the part. Maybe is a better phrase. Um, think of it as like a role play. Maybe you don't have a ton of confidence and you're still kind of nervous and unsure, but if, and again, ethically, know what you're doing, negotiate, all that stuff. But if you can put on that kind of role and think of it as maybe you are playing the part of someone else that is really confident and or scary or dominant or whatever it is you're wanting to be, um, that can help majorly, just to get that going, and you get into a little bit and then you start to feel the part a little bit more and it might come a little more naturally. So try that, see if that helps, because yeah, role playing is fun. So um, definitely give that a try. Ethically, those are all my notes. That's what I have to say. So Um, please let me know what you think. If you have any maybe follow-up questions, or like I said, if you want to challenge me on something, if you disagree or have something to add, absolutely add. That sounds awesome. If you have new questions, please send them to me. I want to do another Q&A video. I kind of want to make this a regular thing because it'll be, I think, fun for me and fun for others, hopefully. So send me more questions. If you want to see other places I'm going to be, you can always check out my website, alternativesexuality.ca. There's always a list of, like, there's some info, list of workshops and like upcoming workshops that I'm teaching or going. Um, you can always follow me on Twitter at the reddest of Rob. Don't ask. um, that's another option as well. Or I'm Redrobin on FetLife. And yeah, thank you so much for the questions. They were really great questions. And I'll see you soon. Stay cool. It's really warm outside. I'm going to take my clothes off now after the camera's off. Have a good night, everyone.